he said, as long as it's lawful, that means actually setting up the entity properly. I mean, I think, Jack, would you be having a class on this here, on that, here specifically, that subject?
That's the webinar that Brother Yusef is talking about on Saturday. That's what we're going to be talking about.
Great.
We're going to be talking about that and other deep stuff in terms of how these trusts actually work and what you have to do. A lot of people forget that the trust operates under statutes of fraud. And under statutes of fraud, you must have everything that's $500.
Hello.
And anything dealing with real estate must be in a writing. It must be. And if you don't do that, you violated the tenets of the trust.
So when you say anything, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go on. I'm listening.
So you were saying anything over $500. So are you talking about transactions? Say if I go to someone's place of business or their home and do a transaction over $500. You're talking about counseling?
You got to go back and put it in your minutes that you did business with Joe Blow and you gave him $630 for this, that, and the other. And you put that in your book, and it's got to be listed as a transaction that you did on that particular date. So
anything over 500.
Anything over 500. It's 600. That's over 5. So you got to put that in writing, and most people forget to do that, and they mess themselves up because when they track that transaction and find out you did it, you violated that trust. That trust can be put to the side. That trust can be, shut down. You don't want that because you got to start all over. You got to start from the back of the line. You don't want to start from the back of the line. You want to do it correct. And anything dealing with real estate's got to be in writing. You've got to follow the law as it's written. That's why you have to know what the law is in the beginning.
So when you say law, are you talking about what IRS codes or something? I mean, what should be?
What the IRS says and what the trust is. The law of the trust is you must keep your business documents in order and current. So if you got a transaction or anything that's going down today, you must put it in your book today, not tomorrow, today, to keep it current. Because tomorrow you may have 4 or 5 other transactions. You got to put them in that day to keep you on track. Otherwise, you're going to get off track and you're going to have a mess on your hands. So you got to do it when it happens to keep your books current. Because you're going to have a minute book, and that book going to fill up real quick. So you need to put your minutes in 2 places. One place in your office and another place away from your office, just in case the place burned down. You still need your minutes.
Wow. And I know that different states, like the state of Texas, they have a section that strictly talks about trust in the states. Is that something that should be studied, or it's relevant, or should I actually study?
Yes, you need to study anything related to a trust until you have a working knowledge of how to maneuver and how to go through things and what to look out for so you don't have no pitfalls, because a pitfall could cost you. So you don't want to be fined or penalized in any of this.
If you're looking at something in the state of Texas, that would be a statutory trust, and it would be subject to some sort of statutory regulation. So once again, people would have to understand there is a difference between public and private. If there is a public trust, it's probably going to be, subject to a rule or regulation or code of the particular state that you're in. But when we talk about a private trust, it means it's not subject to that regulation. And in order to make sure that it maintains that status, it has to be managed properly.
Wow. Management is the key to this deal, and it's all about your writing in your minute book and to keep your minutes up to date. That's what it's about. And if you
that minute book is very important.
Yes. And you keep that up to date, you will be straight most of the time because you can reflect back to what you just done, and you can determine what status is it in now. Is it going forward or is it stagnant?
Gotcha. You know, it seemed really confusing, so much to the point to where, I mean, you know, Brother Yusef, you always talk about public and private, but then I always thought that trusts were private in itself, but then you just hit me with statutes of a trust. I'm talking about a trust, talking about statutory jurisdiction or something dealing with the statutory laws here in Texas. And I always
you have statutory trust. You have trusts that are subject to statute. Am I right, JT?
Yes, sir.
Man,
you got trust
I thought all trusts were private.
No, they are.
No, all of them.
They are private, but you're dealing in the public too. So that's why you have to have those minutes to track what you've done and to confirm what you've done. And you got your receipts to show that you did a transaction for X amount, and you got it in your minutes.
Let me put it like this. It basically comes down to taxation when you talk about privacy. Whether you're engaged in an activity that is a taxable activity or not. And you know, that's why the setting up of the trust is so important. There could be activities of the trust that you, due to the trustee's mismanagement, that would subject it to some sort of statutory rule or regulation. So that's really what it comes down to. It is a private entity, but is it taxable or is it not taxable? That's kind of what public and private kind of breaks down to. Public is, you know, you're engaged in some type of activity that is effectively connected to a trade or business of the United States, and it can be taxed. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Traffic tickets are a tax. Going to prison is a tax. These are taxes. These are taxes. I remember an attorney told me one, and a lot of people don't understand that, what I just said. Now, I didn't understand what he was first told to me, and the first person to ever tell me that was an attorney, a very prominent attorney in Georgia. And he told me, you know, I had a case, and I said, you know, matter of fact, I just went to him and said, can I pay my way out of this mess? And he's like, nah, man, you can't pay your way out of this. He said, but I'm going to tell you something. Let me just give you a piece of advice. Pay your taxes. I'm like, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, man, what are you talking about, man? I'm a hustler. What are you talking about? This don't have nothing to do with no taxes. But yes, it did. And this is why when you study 27 CFR 72.11, the first thing on that list is violations of the Internal Revenue Code. And people don't know what that means because they don't know all 27 CFR 72.11, Code of Federal Regulations. All right, and that's what this CRIS is all about, Court Registry Investment System. The Court Registry Investment System is tied to the Treasury Department, and the accounting arm for the Treasury Department is the IRS. That's why you can put in an IRS Form 56. You look at the bottom of it, got a place down there for the court. The IRS is behind all of this. They're behind everything, okay? Because the country is bankrupt. The country is bankrupt. We don't own nothing in this country. Every activity that's going on in this country is a taxable activity that's going to pay the creditors. These statutes, when you study the statute merchant, these statutes are an index of how they are collecting money and drafting. What they're doing is they're taking your private rights and bringing it into public to pay the national debt. And this is why you hear me say on this show about the acceptance for value, because as a 14th Amendment citizen, one of the prerequisites of that is the debt shall not be questioned. And these statutes are put in place to collect debts. They are debt collectors. That's what you can look this up. It's called statute merchant. But a person who has not studied this and has not had experience with this would not be able to see any of the things that I'm talking about. You'd have to study a mercantile admiralty law to understand. If you just study admiralty, you'll begin to understand a lot of stuff. Because you'll see, okay, I see what they're doing. Because you'll see the connection. Because anytime you talk about bonding, like for instance, when you get arrested and you get a bond, anything that's doing with bonding necessarily has some type of admiralty associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You on the sea. You on the water. You got to do what the captain said.
I put a picture on my Facebook. I put a picture on my Facebook of the federal building in Miami. It is built just like a ship. And I put it on the screen, too. People look at it. Yeah, it's built just like a ship. Built just like a ship. You know what I'm saying? They're showing you, what are they saying to you? Do you think that they just did that for aesthetic purposes? Do you really believe that?
You're on the water. The captain is in charge. And see, the thing about it is, when we go back to gold and silver, which we should be on via the Constitution, Article 1, Section 12 of the Constitution, says nothing but gold and silver coins should be a payment of debt. When we go back to that, then you won't have to worry about certain things like that, because it won't be effective anymore. And when you go to gold and silver coin, there is no more admiralty. There's common law. Common law is the best law. Okay? That's what it is the first 100 years in the United States, and it worked.
And here's the trick that Roosevelt played in 1933. The Constitution is in still force in effect, but what they had to do is people would have to understand how the Congress has plenary power over all of its insular possessions and its territories. It is very vital to understand Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution, because the Congress is not subject to the Constitution when they are administering or they are governing over their own territory or their own insular possessions. Right? That is why the U.S. citizen thing is so important. And that's why they could bring this fiat currency in. They brought this fiat currency in because when they made everybody a U.S. citizen, they took you out of that jurisdiction of the Constitution and put you into another jurisdiction called the United States, where they had the power to do whatever they wanted to do. And all this stuff is owned by them. All these federally insured banks, all this stuff is owned by them.
Well, you can get out of that by revocation of election. And we got a document that we got to figure out whether it's real or not, because it talked about, it was 9 pages of rock'em sock'em. And we want to know, we got to do some research to find out, is this a real document or is it bogus? Because it shows you in that the enclave, the federal enclave, if you're not a federal employee and you're not in Washington, D.C., then you're not subject to any tax, period. Period. You're not taxable at all. But
also, you'll notice in the IRS code, when you have a trustee who is a U.S. citizen or beneficiaries who are U.S. citizens, there's going to be some type of tax liability associated with that too. So the construction of the trust has to be done very carefully. The fitness of the trust is important. All these things are important because the United States, people have to understand is that if it is effectively connected with a trade or business of the United States, and people need to understand under Title 15 USC, I think it's 3002, or is it 28 USC 3002, United States is a corporation.
yes,
All right? They are a corporation. They issue stock and bonds like any other corporation, i.e. the birth certificates. All these different things that you will see and everything, but you have to understand all of this stuff, and you begin to paint a picture in your mind that it is all about taxes. It is all about taxes.
And it's domiciled in Virginia. The United States Court is domiciled in Virginia.
Yeah, see, I understand what it is you said. I've been listening to you enough to know there was a loop thrown to me with trust and knowing that it can be public and private. Now, as far as private status, would you get into that in this webinar? If you in private status, we be told how to operate within that.
In my opinion, yes, definitely. In my opinion, in studying trust law, like we just said earlier, it's about management of trust. It's your conduct and your activities that you engage in. It's like this. Let me see if I can give a simple example. It's like you saying that you're a sovereign. All right, you're saying, look, the United States don't have no power over me. All right, or no, I'll give you a better example. Or like we live in a neighborhood, and you live in your house, and I live in my house, and you put up on your yard private, do not trespass, private property. All right. And I said, okay, you don't want nobody coming on his property. Okay, fine, I won't come on his property. But you come off of your property, come in my house, and go in my refrigerator. And I say, look, man, I said, you can't go in my refrigerator. And then you look out the refrigerator, you say, look, I'm a sovereign. You know what I'm saying? That's what a lot of people do. They say they don't understand sovereignty. They say, I'm a sovereign, but you want to come out of your sovereignty into my house, because the United States is saying you are right, but we are sovereign in our house. And their house is their territory and their insular possession. They have sovereignty over that. You don't have no say-so over that. So in managing the trust, you have to learn how to separate yourself from that and learn how to conduct your business in a way that either you can avoid taxation or reduce your tax exposure. And that is what management is all about.
Exactly.
I hope that's a good example. Is that pretty good, JT? It's my mentor. He's my mentor. He's supposed to be giving me a test.
I heard the brother several times before, and I really appreciate listening. Yusef, this King Todd, is this somewhere you can send me a list of the webinars? The
yes, I will. Yeah, hit me with the email, and I will say I'll send you a list, brother. I'll get that to you.
All right, it's King Todd. I appreciate it, and thanks. It's always a pleasure listening to y'all. All right, peace.
All right, peace, brother. Peace. Thank you. All right. Let me bring in. Who is this? We got a lot of people want to get in on the questions today. A lot of people want to get in on questions today. Let me bring in somebody said they were panting. I'm panting trying to get in. And you know what they say? They panting trying to get in. I don't see their number nowhere on the list. I don't see no 88. Okay, I'm going to call back in. Okay, you say you're going to call back in. Okay, well, you have to wait now. I'm bringing in the next caller. 11111. You're on High Frequency Radio. Somebody, you got your number. I can't see your number.
Peace to the gods.
Peace to the gods. What's happening, brother?
All is well. Yeah, I was just, I'm getting confused with the, not bringing the private into the public when, you put everything into, like, your paperwork, and isn't that the reason and the purpose is before you even, like, because we know we don't want to end up into this courtroom.
Public and private do not mix. And let me just say this. That is what I see with this patriot movement, as people like to affectionately call it, is the main problem that so many people have with things not working for them is that mixing of public and private. They don't know how to stay on the private. Your process has to be private from beginning to end. If anywhere along during that process it crosses over that fence and goes into the public, your process has been tainted. And you can be taxed. That's why I say if you want to really understand it, study trust law and tax law. That's why you don't hear me talk about, if people really pay attention to my show, they will see lately I've been really on a lot of trust talk and tax talk. Because I think that is the area of knowledge where people will get the best understanding of public and private. They'll get the best understanding of public and private because in studying trust law or trust management, you are taught how to keep your affairs private. That's what it's all about.
Let's use that same scenario. Let's use that same scenario. Okay, say brother's inside the house and you're on the outside of the house, and the brother's like, "Come on in. I got something privately, And then the other brother's like, "No, you're gonna have to bring that outside." He's like, "No, come on in."
That's like when the quote, he come in, "Come on across the bar," and so we can have a discussion.
Once y'all do certain things and you are deemed foreign, you should want to go and be in the private, like completely. You won't need to be in the public anymore. You'll have your assets situated. You won't need to try to straddle the fence per se. There's no need to want to be in the public. That's why I put up my consultations will be ending, because once you come to the end of your process, you should go and live in the private.
Everything.
See what? I love the scenarios because people can understand them a little better, you know. So,
Yeah, I understand exactly where you're going with that, and you're absolutely correct. You can be subject to some type of technology that's going on in the court. The judge will trick you. I've even been in court with some people and heard the judge tell somebody this. You come in there and he be trying to do his process, and then the judge will just sit there and look at him and say, okay, I'm going to let you know, my next question is a trick question. You're looking at them because they gauge who they talking to. They'll say, okay, this guy don't know what he's doing. So you sit there and ask, okay, my next question is a trick question. You know I'm going to try to trick you. I'm going to try to trick you. So, yeah, you got to watch what you say in the courts, and your paperwork has to be structured in a certain way. Like we were talking earlier, there is a private side of the court. That's what an in-camera proceeding is all about. That's pretty, I mean, look that word up. It's right. Okay, an in-camera proceeding is a private process when you're going into court, presenting yourself privately. You cannot put public information into. You got to look at it like this. You got to look at it like English and Chinese. Chinese is private and the public is English. When you bring private information to the public, it's like you speaking Chinese in the court. And everybody going to act like they don't know what the hell you're talking about. Man, what are you talking about? That's private information.
That's why you
don't know nothing about
that
that.
challenging
What statutes and public stuff? What are you talking about? What are you bringing this private stuff in here for? That's not nothing we deal with in this court. They don't know what you're talking about. You understand? So they're always looking, and that's why they're looking at ways to pierce the trust. When they try to pierce an activity that will bring you within their jurisdiction. And 9 times that's what all the license is about: driver's license, marriage license, business license, all these different things and everything, because these all are evidence that you are subject to some type of statutory offense, that you are subject to some type of statutory authority, in which everybody should go and listen to that, because that brother really went in on that information, and you just being deemed, and people should look at that word deemed. When you see the word deemed, you need to pause. The word deemed is a very, very important word in law. It means that they're establishing a legal fiction. So if you are deemed as a public entity, all right, and you can look up public figure, anyone who voluntarily participates in a public controversy is public. You know, to the public controversy is public. You know, Jesus even said in Matthew 5:35, take care of your affairs privately. That's what he said in Matthew 5:35. Take care of your affairs privately. That's what he's saying. Agree with your adversary before you get to court. Take care of this privately. Jesus also said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and the Lord what is the Lord's. That was a tax question. I hope people know that. The Pharisees and Sadducees came to him, well, do we have to pay taxes? And they always doing that to me. Are you saying we don't have to pay taxes? And Jesus said, look, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and what is the Lord's, public and private. If it's in the public, yeah, you got to pay taxes. If it's in the private, no, you don't have to pay taxes. That's what it breaks down to. And it's been like that for thousands of years. Hello. Oh, you still there, JT? Y'all all on the line?
Yeah, I'm here. We still here. Go ahead, brother. Don't stop.
But I just wanted to put that out there and just, let people start to see it's about public and private. It's about either a taxable activity or non-taxable activity. And they tax it because everything, they're looking for something to tax. So they can create a debt, because if they can tax it, they can create a debt. They can create a debt, they can create a bond. They can create a bond, they can sell it.
Well, and I believe
Yusef,
that if everybody comes to this word, wizardry, where they are wizards of the words, and we need to know these words and the definition and meaning of them, you know, because like I was talking before, it's you know, we grew up learning words, and we use these same words with the same meanings in everything we do. And we're not taught that growing up that these words have different meanings as far as, you know, your social life, the lawful life, you know, the public and the private, you know, and you're not taught that. And I believe that's the downfall of, you know, a lot of people today, a lot of people from our, from our nationality is, you know, we're not taught that. We use the same word, and when we use that word, we use it in different platforms and trying to make it mean the same thing when it's a different meaning for those different platforms, and that's how we get caught up.
Definitely the meaning of words, but I'm going to tell you like this. They use the true meaning of the word. We use colloquialisms. We're the ones that have been dumbed down and miseducated. Right? The words that they use are the proper meaning of the words. When you study the etymology of the word and the significance of the word, usually, you know, in legalese, it's the proper meaning of the word. They're not using any deception. We're the ones who've been misinformed and been given the wrong meaning of words and the vibratory force that are behind the words. Because, see, words are connected with nature. You know, everything has to have has an origin and the source of all creation, which people would call God. Right? Because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. So I like to ask people this question. They'll talk about like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. I say, okay, what language was God speaking to Adam and Eve in? What was the language they were talking? Because you can't say English. You know, you can't even say Hebrew. Because Hebrew didn't come around until Abraham. You know, he came out of Ur of Chaldea. So you can say Chaldeic, but then, you know, you go back even further than that. So what language, because if whatever language God was speaking to Adam and Eve in, that would have to be the pure language. That would have to be something that is, you know, that is in its purest form and untainted form that God spoke to Adam and Eve in. So
the Christians going to say they were speaking in tongues. They were speaking in tongues, brother. Now what?
I ain't gonna go there. I'm not here to attack any religion today.
No, I'm not either, but I mean, I get that all the time. I mean, that's what they tell me all the time. I'm just going, you know, just like growing up in school, we only know what we've been taught.
I will say this. I don't know where they got speaking in tongues from. When you go into Acts, what it's called speak, it wasn't in some incoherent babbling that they do today.
When you sitting up there in court, you know, you're on something and you're trying to stand on your square, and all of a sudden that judge leads you on something else. You know. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you: what was the what is the meaning, like, or the purpose of saying something 3 times in court to one of these magistrate judge or ministerial officers?
Everything works in 3s. I mean, 3 is a magic number. You can go back.
Okay, but once you have said it 3 times, I mean, then what?
Well, I'm gonna tell you like this, and I'm gonna tell you what. And this is not a fact or anything I'm about to say. This is my perception, and it's just an observation that I made. When I look in the Black's Law Dictionary, one thing I noticed, because I've spent so much time in it, it always seems to be that the third sense of the word is always a commercial term. Most of the time, not all time, but I'd say about 80% of the time, when you look at the definitions of the word, they don't have a whole plethora of definitions, only a few senses of the word. A lot of times they put that third sense of the word as some sort of as a commercial term. Because when you look at you can look up a word in the Black's Law Dictionary and it has a different sense. So I think that when you go into a court and you use a word, they don't know what sense of the word you're using. So if you say it the one time, that's the first sense. If you say it the second time, that's the second sense. If you say it the third time, that's the third sense. That's what I was kind of, just, and this could be wrong. I'm not saying, but I wanted to, when we talk about the 3 times, that's when you also get into esoteric type conversation, because, even when you did like the Wizard of Oz, you had to say the magic word 3 times. tapping heels 3 times.
He
You know,
about to tell
everything was
y'all
on this thing with
that they were
free.
scared
And even
to
in
read the
Schoolhouse Rock,
charges.
he said, you know, they got this the Schoolhouse Rock cartoon that used to come on this weekend. They got one of them as free as a magic number. You know, so it's and hold on for a second. Let me make this announcement real quick. Let me tell everybody we're about to go into overtime. If you want to continue listening to the call, you're going to have to call in now. The number is 424-222-5250. You got about 60 seconds to get you a line. If not, you can Skype in too if you're listening on the internet. But if you don't, they're going to disconnect you, and you're going to have to catch us in our archives. You can go to the archives at blogtalkradio.com/high frequency. You can catch the archives of the show, of this show, and all the other shows. You can hear the rest of the show. We're about to go into overtime, so call in now. 4 lines are left, and that's everybody in the chat room. But that was my take on it, brother. It's like, you know, obviously that's esoteric when you're talking about three. That's esoteric. And that's why, and that was one of the primary reasons why I would say that you have to study esoteric information to understand. And when I say esoteric, it doesn't mean hidden, because obviously all of this stuff is built on some type of ecclesiastical law. Which when we talk about the Jesuits and all these different people, these people are all skilled in what would be termed high sciences. Because everything is a science. This ain't no jumbo. If they want people to do something 3 times, it's some sort of science behind it. It's not. Everything is a science. Law is science. Law is scientific. 100%.
All right.
But hey, let me take a couple of calls.
They might want to get up and run up off chair. I say I know some of those judges might want to get up and run off of that chair before you get to that third time or something.
I had a judge, and this is personal experience. I had a federal magistrate judge, not a district court judge, a magistrate judge, and I asked him to read. Okay, they were trying to give me charges, and I knew that the charges need to be read into the record. So they wanted me to plead. They brought me for a man. And that's another thing. You're not even supposed to be pleading before a magistrate. You know, and this is another thing why I have to do this webinar tonight on how to evade a federal indictment. People need to get with me on that tonight so we can discuss that. But the funny thing is that they presented. They said, well, you know, how you plead? And I said, well, look, I'll be more than happy to plead to the charges if the judge can show me that charges been formally entered into the record. And so as soon as I said that, the prosecutor went over to bring me my charges. Nobody said anything. Now, the record's not showing it, obviously, because they hadn't said anything. They just handed you a piece of paper. And they handed me the piece of paper, and I looked at it in front and back. I said, I see no charges. I said, I request that the judge direct the prosecutor to read the charges into the record. He said, no. I mean, he lost composure. I mean, this tripped me out. He just lost his composure. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, he said, no. And I said, well, am I to understand the honorable judge is violating my due process right for hearing the charges read against me into the record? And then he said, no. He said, I'll read it into the record. And so the bailiff took him the charges, put it in his hand. He held it in his hand. He looked at it. He just sat there at the bench and just stared at it. And all of a sudden he said, no, I'm not going to read it into the record. And then I asked him again. And then when I went to the third time, he started screaming at me, right when I was trying to do the third time. So, and then also, the district court judge asked me my name 3 times. Now, what it's supposed to be is that 3 times stands on the record your position on that particular matter. They got up to 3 times, you know, to ask them something. You got 3 times you can ask them their name. Now, you can read a lot about this. I gave everybody a document called Law, Redemption, in Court. You can actually go to Section 4 in the discussions. It's number 3, of doing things 3 times. It goes into that a lot. That's where a lot of people are getting this information. There's almost nothing that y'all can bring to me. I can't tell you the source of where it came from. Because I done read everything and then did all this stuff myself. I said, okay, I know what document you got that from. Somebody's always trying to sneak something in on me. I said, yeah, you need to go read this document right there. Go read Judge Dale's document. Go read Law, Redemption, in Court. Oh, go read, court process. Go read a court survival guide. Oh yeah, that's right there. That's an abatement in common law. Oh yeah, I remember reading that in One Man Out. Oh, that sounds like that came straight out of Cracking the Code, 3rd edition.
Right.
These guys are getting stuff from different sources and converting it into their own stuff and then presenting it like it's theirs. And if they don't understand the principles behind it, they just fucking it up. Excuse my language.
Right.
You don't understand what it is that you're doing. And that's why I spend so much time on principles, because you have to master principles before you get...
If you demonstrate to the IRS that you know pretty much what you're doing, they will attempt to assist you. I showed a letter this morning that they sent me, and it gives instructions. Yeah, it gives instructions on basically how to format your address to keep it private and in the foreign, quote unquote. So the IRS will kind of help you.
Into methodology, right? You have to learn how to dribble before you can play basketball. You can't come on the court and you never dribbled the ball before. How much you want to play on the NBA? You can't make the NBA. You probably can't shoot with your left hand or dribble with your left and go right. You have to be able to go right and left and all this. They're looking for, they're looking for what your fundamentals are like. What is his fundamentals? And that's how it is with everything in mastery. In any type of thing you want to master, anything you want to master, you have to master the fundamentals first. That's anything.
Now, can you say something about the trust? Like when you go into court, that's a trust established, and that's kind of the reason why you ask the, you want them to read it into the record, because now they're becoming, or they actually are the trustee in the first place. I don't know if the prosecutor or the judge, but once they read it into the record, they, I guess for sure become the trustee. But they're trying to get you.
Well, what it is there aren't any charges in existence. The only thing that matters is the record. So if you haven't read the charges in the record, they're trying to get you to plead. You're pleading to non-existent charges. The charges are already fictitious in the first place. They're fiction. They're bringing a claim, and they're a bankrupt entity. They can't bring a claim. They're bankrupt. This is what I'm saying. There is no money. They can't bring a claim. That's why none of those mortgages are valid. None of the car notes are valid. None of them. None. N-O-N-E. Not one. Not one in the United States of America is valid.
Did y'all hear?
Wow, can you repeat that? That's just like, wow.
That's what I'm saying. There is no money. They can't bring a claim. That's why none of those mortgages none of those mortgages are valid. None. None of the car notes are valid. None of them. None. N-O-N-E. Not one. Not one in the United States of America is valid. There's no
wow,
money.
can you repeat that? That's just like, wow, they're bringing charges, which there is no charges. It's all fictitious. Can you repeat that?
Well, you got to understand it's a debt collection. All right, this is what you have to understand. The statutes represent, and when you read the United States Code, you'll see that, hey, you do this charge, it's $1 million or 5 years in jail, or both. It'll say that. All right, you have $1 million fine or something like that. All right, that's like us.
And this morning, he told y'all how to do the administrative process, the 4 letters, in 21 days. So you can literally get it done in a month.
The statute merchant, all right? It's a bond of record. Okay, so you owe this money. It's a bond of record and everything, and they're not telling you that because they operate off of presumptions, assumptions, and color of law. So they are presuming that you don't want to know how it is, how much it is. The same thing the debt collectors do when they do the mortgages. They come at you and they say, "Oh, you owe us this money and everything like this," but they are presuming that you don't want to verify the debt. So the same thing's happening in the courtroom. They're using the same methodology. They're assuming that you don't want to verify the debt.
Why not verify?
There's no verification. You're requesting any verification of what we're doing on this collection of this debt. And as a matter of fact, they're operating within the Constitution because you can't question the debt. That's what the 14th Amendment is all about. So that's where acceptance for value came in. It's called, or what they call an acceptance for honor.
And
You
a
won't
lot of
find
y'all
acceptance for value in
be worried about it when they don't respond. That's good when they don't respond. What do they say? An unrebutted affidavit stands as fact. That's your proof right there.
a law book. But you will find the word acceptance for honor. That is a legal term that people should study. You should also
Y'all can put
study the word
questions
strangers
in the comments.
and look at the third sense of the word. The word is strangers.
Right. And is
I've had
there
an attorney call me a stranger. I've had an attorney call me a stranger in a court proceeding before. And if you don't know what that word means, you'll think it means something else. The word called stranger. That's dealing with debt collection, the payment of a debt.
Wow. And that's what I was saying. We grow up to believe that stranger means something else other than, what you're talking about. That definition of, that legalese or that lawful definition, we are unaware of that even exists because we're not even taught that in these schools which they run and the churches which they run. So we're not taught any of that. So we know that word stranger just means something that's not familiar to us, and we're not taught that the legalese of it, the lawful word, definition of it. So when they speak to us in courts or, to the other ones that don't have that knowledge, and they're just thinking he's speaking everything that he was taught growing up. And he's saying something totally different. And when they're using the Constitution, as far as the courts, are they using the I wanted to ask, there's two Constitutions for the United States of America and of the United States of America. So which one would they be using? I believe it would be of the United States of America.
If you're operating under of the United States of America and you're operating under a corporation, and when you look up, this is why you have to look up the word Constitution. Look up the word Constitution in a law dictionary, so you get an understanding that constitutions are utilized to create corporations.
The Constitution is a trust itself, correct?
The Constitution for the United States is a trust, and the preamble is a trust indenture. All right, true enough. But still, then yes, you should know that. Now, let me answer a question I saw in the chat room real quick, because somebody said about a notary. They said they thought a notary holds more weight. And the only one, okay, that's not that far.
A notary is equivalent to the secretary.
But that's basically. Let me take some more calls, brother. I gotta move on.
Yes, sir.
I gotta ask some more questions. But essentially, you had some good questions, but it breaks down to public and private, brother. Either you're engaged in a taxable activity or you're not. But anyway, let me go back to the phone line. All right, thank you for calling. Okay.
Thank you. Peace.
All right. Let me bring in next caller, 718-0885. You have a question or a comment for our guest, JT Bay?
Yes, I do. Thanks for taking my call. Greetings to the esteemed guest. I had heard earlier you say that the IRS only looks back 3 years. Is that correct?
Well, 3 actual years. They can go back if there is some connective issue. Okay, you got that second year, you got something that reflects back 3 or 4 years. They can go back even further after they find out an error or omission in something.
Okay, so because I was told I should keep my records for at least 7 years. Is that a good practice?
I would say so. I would say you should keep it for 10 years.
10 years, okay.
10 years. Because they can go back after that and say that you omitted something or you did this or you did that.
Okay.
And it's a good thing to keep them in archives just in case somebody says something that's not true.
Okay. And the other question, getting to like American currency, I came into inheritance of some coins and stamps, and I'm actually going through some of them right now. Is there any significance in terms of value for coins that have the letter D, or do you know anything about that?
We don't care.
I think the Republic, because they were one of the first ones that was minting and dating the coin.
Okay.
And they put alphabets on them to go to the dictionary be on the account even after it's closed.
Okay.
You go to the dictionary or to the encyclopedia.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. And the other question I have, I heard about somehow that if you close a bank account, I don't know if this is true, I could be saying it wrong, banks have access still to that account even if it's closed, and I myself could actually access that closed account. Do you know anything about that?
Yes.
I mean, go ahead, JD. Go ahead.
I said there is activity on the account even after it's closed.
Okay.
There's activity on the account before. If you opened it, if it existed, well, it was already in existence when you went into the bank to open it.
Right, now, but I'm just, because I'm hearing people saying that they're able to access the closed account to take money from it and things like that. I was wondering if you guys
Well, they
have
said
any.
that if you look at the definition of closed account, it'll tell you that it's open for offset and adjustment for set off, but it still remains open for set off.
Right.
So, yeah, they still have access to the account.
Yep.
Okay.
Set off and adjustments are accounting procedures that is used to deal with these type of accounts. Because
Okay.
as soon as go on.
Let me. Oh, I was going to say, let me share a little story with you. One time I had a client, he was paying me $10,000, and I opened up a bank account just opened up a new business account. And he was my first client, and he gave me a check for $10,000, and the check bounced, and they closed the account. And when they closed the account, they put on there, they put in the account like a negative balance of $899,000. And I'm like, why did y'all put this, why is this account reflecting a negative balance of $899,000? And I ain't even put $899,000 in the account. But if you know the definition of closed account, they can set off that amount. They are somewhere they're going to get $900,000 to set off because their books have to balance every night.
Okay.
This is the type of fraud that I think that they're doing. So I'm like, okay, if you're reflecting $899, I got this audio. I'm going to let you hear this banker who's speaking on this. But every night at 12 o'clock, those books have to balance. They have to set that account off. So did they just put a balance on the balance sheet on my business account? Is that why they're so aggressive? They so quick to close your account because, we got an opportunity to make some money for dishonor now. I'm like, man, you didn't even give me a chance to even get with the man and see if I could get another check from him or anything like that. They just closed the account down.
Yeah.
Just like that. And I know some people out there know what I'm talking about. And they'll put that negative balance on there. And when you call them and ask them about it, we just do that just to let you know that the account is closed.
Right.
Okay.
Are there any IRS or IRC codes that I could look up that helps me, that would help explain that? Or are there any places you could refer me to where I can study on this?
Well, if you got,
I don't know on that. I mean, JT might. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know on that.
In the complete Internal Revenue Code, you can go in the index and go in and look up any subject that you want to, and they will have a reference to a code section in there.
Okay.
They got
And I recently I've seen a 2004 IRC manual for like $10. Should I be looking for the most recent IRC manual?
No.
Could I refer to those older ones?
All 2004, 2005 are good years, very good years.
2004 and 2005. Okay.
Yeah, they start reducing the book down. My 2008 book doesn't have the power that 2005 book has. The 2005 book got more pages in it than the 2008 book does.
Right. Well, the manual I saw was in 2 parts, and it was only just the first from 1 to 2000. So I might have difficulty finding the second part, but try to go back as far as you can to get an IRC manual, correct?
Not as far as you can, but I would stop around 2005, 2004, 2005. 2005, I think, was the best year of IRS code book, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, gentlemen. Appreciate the answers.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. All right. All right, let's go to Eric. GO1, you're on High Frequency Radio. Did you have a question or comment for our guest?
Peace, mentors. How you doing?
Peace, brother, peace. Great. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Always good to hear both of y'all brothers' voices. Wanted to ask a question earlier, brother Yusef and brother TT, when y'all was talking about the legal aspect of the trustees going into court.
Yes.
One of the things I want to know is it the privatization of the document that keeps it out? Is it what we put in the documentation inside the trust res that keeps it out of the court? You know,
Keep it out. Anything that the trustee does is a private event, and he does not have to testify in any court, any place, at any time, because that's a private matter. Death is a private matter.
But let me answer too. That yes, the indenture outlines the powers that are given to the trustee. So yes, that would have a lot to do whether or not any powers that have been granted to him to be construed as as public or private or whatever. So in the actual documentation is important in the formation of the trust.
yeah. So
I know what you're asking me.
Yeah, I want that. You know, if I run into that issue, especially in little scenarios we're doing now, we're trying to set up a lot of investment trusts and then making them bridge corporations, doing a lot of business in the public. You know, we might run into issues somewhere. Somebody's suing, something happens, something this. So that trustee may run into an issue. So basically, the correspondence would be that documentation would be submitted to that court as to show why they do not have to testify.
Right. He does not have to testify because it's a private matter. It's a private matter. It's dealing with an estate. It's dealing with, somebody's life or death. So
Unless
you do not have to reveal.
Well, we can't do criminal activity, right? If it's something criminal, they can still pierce that, right?
No, they cannot pierce that.
Man.
You do not have to testify as the trustee at all.
I see what you say. They can't say what it is if you don't testify. Who can say it is criminal? I see what you're saying on that.
Right. It's private. And you have to keep it private.
What was you going to say, brother?
I was going to say that's what the management is for. The trustees, that's what the trustees have to know how, when they're approached by the IRS, how to handle a situation. You got to know how to handle it. You got to know what you can give them, what you can't give them. Because you're there to protect the benefit, the interest of the beneficiary. And let's say, now you can read some case law on trust shams where they construe the trust as an association or partnership or something like that. And then they come in and, they say, hey, but then that, like I said, that all is how you form the trust, and it falls back on the management of the trust as to whether or not they're able to do that.
Right. Because I think, I just still think a lot of, the brother earlier, he was talking about it's a lot of slamming you when you look at private and public. And I think some of the confusion of the private and public is some of these private entities, well, it looks like we're taking them into the public is because we're noticing the public. We're not really taking them in the public.
That's what it is, a notice. You have to have a separate thing between a notice. Like a UCC1 is a notice.
Exactly.
Somebody put a question on me the other day. They said, well, how do we get to the, somebody said something about the collateral and everything like that, something like that. I said, well, you contact the, you contact the creditor. That's where they put their information on the UCC1. You call him up and talk to him and see what paperwork you need to get from him. But he's just giving you a notice that there's some sort of security interest in property.
Right, because I could have a 9A trust that could have a bridge, either foundation or another trust leaned up. and somebody in the public is having an issue with it, and that private non-A trust can still notice the public of this issue, and it wouldn't pierce my privacy. It would just be noticing.
They're just notices, and that's also when you're in court, you have a private and public side. You give notices on the public side of what you're doing on the private side. You're giving notices that you are staying in honor, and then you handle your business privately. That's how you handle a private process with the court. And that's why I keep telling people to read creditors in their bonds, because it explains that very clearly.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think really, Brother Yusef, what I've seen from the last probably 2 years of operating the trust, 2.5 years, and 15 years of operating corporations, and I keep telling people that they just really shouldn't be afraid of that public, and they should get a lot of experience by just going and doing simple corporations with a team, because if they do it with a team, they'll learn how to operate in unity. You know what I'm saying? They'll learn who has different powers, how it works. But then when you get to the private side, you won't make as many mistakes, so you'll be used to the kind of format of how things operate. That's just the way I see it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a little tougher with a trust, because you have to really know how to stay in that private. Totally. Really. You
do, and that's what. And that private is a skill. People don't understand. That's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. That's like getting muscles. Like everybody can't get abs. Everybody can't get abs because everybody's not willing to do the discipline and necessary exercise to get abs. Everybody can't operate in the private. Everybody can't operate in the private. They ain't disciplined enough to operate in the private.
That's very true. Because we, when we created a couple of investment groups over here, what we decided to do was, when we get this knowledge, a lot of times we want to pull everybody to the thought. I'm not saying everybody shouldn't have make a notice of their either have nationality or notice of status correction. You should be free from that part. But I'm saying when you're talking about the business aspect, everybody's not ready for that. So what we ended up, it got a lot simpler for us because there's some people on our team who just aren't ready to be private, but they serve as great officers. They can open up bank accounts for them and they can get their education. 2-3 years from now, they back up off and then we can get lines of credit. It allows us to keep moving without trying to figure out how to do it with us who are trying to stay private. We can create with those who are kind of in between who haven't got there yet. If that makes sense.
Make sure, that's why I want y'all to do y'all research. Make sure you read everything, look up everything, because there's a such thing as commingling assets.
I think so. You kind of, JT, did you catch that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I'm just basically saying a lot of people want to go totally private. You know what I'm saying? But we want to do business, and then when we operate, it's us. We might be the only ones in our whole jurisdiction, the area that understand how to operate total private. So we might have access to 5, 10, 20 people in our area, but time you teach them that, you ain't going to get nowhere. It might be better to just utilize them in their public capacity with their socials to create the LLC, to they educate and learn, and now you're teaching them, they're helping you operate, you stay private, and you can still operate and bring them up, to understanding, and we can kind of help each other that way. You know what I'm saying? That's all
right. I look at things like this. I understand what you're saying. I look at things like this. Being private means you want to be left alone. And being private and being left alone, the optimal way to do that is you have to be an investor. I think one of the best books put out to give an understanding of that is Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant. I don't know if people have read any of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. So you can get an understanding between an investor, a business owner, an employee, and you know what I'm saying? There's like 4 different entities, and at the top of the food chain is an investor. And you want to be an investor, and that's what these trusts allow you to do. It allows you to be an investor and maintain your privacy.
Right, that's true.
Right, that's it. Right.
That's true.
That's what it does, and it's like
you're feeding the entity. You're feeding the entity and giving it life. You're the blood. The investor is the blood of the entity. So he has total control of what's going on. Period.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's it.
I don't think you can be private unless you are an investor. I don't think it's possible to live a totally private life unless you're an investor.
See, I'm agreeing with you on that one, because that's why I see everybody get the headache at. Because you can't, because if you can't operate, there's nothing you can't maintain the privacy too much longer. You can't operate.
You have to be an investor, you know. So that's what we're doing this, and we're doing the webinar on Saturday and everything. We're going to explain a lot of this stuff. But you know, it's like it's just an unfolding of information. Things become clearer and clearer, and you begin. That's why I know as a people we're gonna rise back up, because we can look across the fence and we can begin to understand that fog is starting to lift, and we're beginning to understand what they're doing. You know, I was talking to an LAPD officer yesterday in Compton, California, and you know, and Compton is so rich with history. It's been given a black eye and undeservingly. Let me say this first of all about Compton. I met some very great people in Compton, but he was explaining about how we don't take care of how he travels all over, and what he sees the difference in the neighborhoods is how other neighborhoods take care of their neighborhoods, and they have accountability for things that go on in their neighborhoods, and we don't. And that's what we have to start doing. We have to start looking back in our neighborhoods. You know, I really feel like this. If our architects get on the job, people are going to be looking in our neighborhoods and say, man, look at the houses they building over there. Look at them structures and everything. Our creativity, now look over in Egypt and see what we were doing. If we ever get back to that status, you know, when we start taking pride back in our own neighborhoods and everything, and money, like a see, it's like, damn, what is the problem? Everybody wants to do it. For so long.
And a universal science that's using universal laws within itself, and a lot of times the reason why our structures don't work is because we keep violating universal law. Like one of the laws we violate most is something for nothing. We don't do the law of exchange, and that keeps on creating an issue. And so we have to really get into seeing all these different laws, different things that occur. The laws are disconnected.
Not able to do it yet, but what I could give you is this book called let me find it. JT, do you have anything on that? I got a book.
On what was that again? What was that you said?
On closing. She said on closing the bank account. Ask your question again, sister. Go ahead and ask it again.
My question was, after my mother-in-law passed away, and they immediately put her house into foreclosure, and we had a bank account attached to her bank account, and our bank account was not in the red. Hers was barely in the red because of one check that she had, but they closed both the accounts immediately without even notifying us of why. And one of the accounts was not in the red. They just shut them down.
Well, they go ahead.
They wanted the property of your mother, and they saw the opportunity to grab it because they figured no one was awake and was full of grief, and they just moved in for the deal. They are vampires basically, and you just have to fight that and show where that account was still valid upon her death, and that's part of her estate. And they cannot come in and just take your estate after you pass away. They have to go through a period of getting everything connected and put together, because there's probably a lot of loose wires out there after a person passed away. That's why you have an estate, and you have a time for it to draw down after a person passed away. It's a lot of good law in the person passing and their possessions, because you just can't run in somebody's house after they pass away and start taking their items, because that's their still personal effects. And that's her personal effects, is her bank account. And that's a lawsuit that you can win, because that's totally unlawful.
Okay. And my other question to you is like, hello?
Go ahead.
Hello?
We here.
Okay. My other question to you is, Okay, my other question to you is, Monday morning, Tuesday morning, we were getting calls from the realtor about selling her property right off the top. I mean, she wasn't even buried. You know, and the particular area that we're living in Florida is an area where their reunification, is that what it's called?
Gentrification.
Yes. And they're doing, and they're doing that, and they're doing that in this particular area, and we have had realtors come up and knock on our door and ask us, do we want to sell our house? And you know, we've been fighting these people. They're calling us on the phone now talking about, we have a place, there's a house for rent in your area. You know, do you want to rent the house? I mean, we don't even know where all these phone calls are coming from, and we're fighting them right now. We're fighting them in court right now. But we're constantly getting people coming by the house, and they're sitting in here, they're sitting there watching us. It's really kind of eerie. But we are determined to fight these people when we're going to fight them.
I'm gonna tell you. I wanted to tell you this about Miami. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but let me say this about Miami. When I was there in Miami back in 2009, I think, they had, what you have to do is you got to go down there and see what the city planners are doing. Because I was helping people with some criminal cases in Miami who had some homeless people who got some dope charges. And what they were doing, they were cleaning up. They had something called Project or Operation something that they were doing. And when their first phase is when they decided to go in and start gentrifying something, they start moving people out. And they get rid of the homeless people, they get rid of everything. And that's what's happening. You got to see what their plans are, because they got some plans, and they're going to go all out to make sure those plans come into fruition. Because I can't see them trying to change their plans for anybody. And I've been in that area that you're talking about, and they got some very, very high-priced stores over there. They're building up an infrastructure over there where it is very obvious that they're planning to do a gentrification project in the surrounding neighborhoods. And they're doing the same thing in every city. So you may want to go and see what, go downtown and see what the plans are. And that will tell you everything. Go get the plats. Go down there and get the plats from the city and see what they're planning to do. And find out what's going on, and that will give you some leads on who to start and who to look at too. Go ahead, DD.
Right, and who to start suing, because that's harassment, and that's also violation of your privacy too, to come in on your mother like that, and to basically stop y'all in the grieving process, and that's totally unlawful. And I'm sure some laws on the books in Miami area that covers that. And you can go into the law library and find out about that in terms of death and what happens afterwards, and what they can and what they can't do. They just can't run up in your house the day after somebody died and say, okay, you want to sell the house. No. They're stopping you in your grieving process, and that's a process that you have to go through, because we all leaving, but who wants to go? You know?
Right, exactly.
So that's a privacy issue too, because they violated your privacy by coming at you like that, and they're intimidating you too, because they're coming so aggressively. So you could go to the law library and research this and get them worried about their short ones, and they will back off of you. They will have one house that they won't be able to buy, and that's yours, because you've got them for treble damages, which is fraud.
Okay. Okay, I have one more question for you, sir. This is it. Okay, so we found the verification validation with Wells Fargo. They did pass it on to B of A and the attorney for B of A, and then they indeed turned it on to another attorney's office, which we don't know where they came from. They all claim to be representing B of A, but I know they're debt collectors. But she asked the judge, this last attorney, she asked the judge, she wants to file a motion to make sure that we can't file this counterclaim in court and without prejudice. So that's what we're faced up against in April.
Well, how can she justify what she's filing? How can she justify?
I didn't hear what you
filing?
said.
Okay, say again, sister.
Yeah, you filing. What are you looking at in April?
She's we got an appointment to see the judge with. She's filed a motion of dismissal. She wants to dismiss our counterclaim without prejudice. With prejudice done or without?
I mean, you got to answer it. I mean, who wants to dismiss the counterclaim? The opposing counsel?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fine. I mean, they can do that. I mean, you can't stop somebody for filing a motion. That's a request. I mean, they're requesting to do something. So you counter it and say why they should not, it should not be granted. Right? Because all emotions, they're supposed to. They're trying to win. It is an adversarial proceeding. They are trying to win. So they're trying to stop what you're doing, and you're trying to stop what they're doing. So, you file an answer to that. You say, no, you don't need to dismiss my motion, and here's why.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Based on credible evidence that you have that's superior to what they got. They got, they're just drawing straws and hoping that you roll over because they are lawyers. But they put their clothes on the same way you put yours on. So,
okay, that's right. All right. Well, thank you, sister. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you. Let's go to the next caller real. Thank you. Let's go to the next caller, 336, which is North Carolina. Let me jump over to North Carolina real quick. North Carolina, 9930. You're on High Frequency Radio. Do you want to add a question or comment?
yes, peace, Brother Yusef. Peace, Brother JT.
Peace, brother.
Peace to God first. JT, I wanted, since we were both talking about, I heard Brother JT said that the common law is the law of the land. And my thing is, how do you go about holding a common law venue?
Well, you first of all, you invoke common law, and then you use common law citations. You don't use no statutes, anything like that, but you can invoke the common law at the beginning of a proceeding.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. And I notice you have to put them on notice first. Because
right.
It is a common law venue. That's the whole point. In other words, we have to learn how to flip the court. So I was asking them, do we have any techniques of his or you, Yusef, to know how to flip it? Because we're putting them on notice. We have to give them notice first that we're moving into a common law. We're moving this. In other words, that we're on the wrong side of the court.
Well, I gave the whole show I did on Friday is abatement in common law.
Oh yeah,
I gave that right there is showing you how to invoke common law jurisdiction in a case. That whole document, that's what that's about, abating the case in common law. The whole document is dealing with everything that you just asked me right there. So, I mean, that is your example, if you wanted it. That's one example of many examples, but that is a good example that you can utilize to form some type of, system to roll off of. So,
right, because,
yeah.
So because when we do that, we're separating ourselves from the legal fiction, and we're saying that we're the man. We're not that legal fiction that they're trying to, charges and everything that they're trying to bring against us.
That's why you're doing the affidavit of a denial of corporate existence, because you got to understand that the statutes are for corporations. That's what they're for. The IRS only taxes corporate entities. That's all the IRS taxes. Remember I told you earlier that everything is a tax? The IRS deals with 7 primary entities. They are a trust, an estate, a corporation, a company, an association, a partnership, and an individual. And the last one, individual, when you look it up, you're going to see that it refers you to an entity which is corporate in nature. It's an artificial person. All right, so they only deal with artificial persons, okay, and that's what the statutes are applicable to. Persons that are artificial. All right, they even try to use this word natural person, but it's only dealing with artificial entity. And if you want to deal with something and assert your rights as a real living soul, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with things privately. It's private, you know what I'm saying, or under common law or something. That's really how you want to do it, because these courts they're administrative courts. They're territorial courts. That's what they're for. And that's why one of my rules is stay out of the courts, because really, you're supposed to have your status and everything correct and not even go in these courts. The ultimate game is we ain't supposed to be in debt. We ain't supposed to be doing none of this stuff. By the fact that we got these car notes, these house notes, which are debtors, that is the biggest indication that we don't know what we're doing. We ain't supposed to have none of that stuff. America's supposed to be the greatest country in the world. We ain't supposed to be doing all this stuff over here that we're doing. We're not. Right. We're not supposed to be engaged in any of this stuff. We ain't supposed to be going in these courts. These courts are not they are not conditioned for real living souls.
Right, exactly. So when we put the common law, a baby in the common law, and then we just basically have to stand on that document.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you read the document, it tells you in there, why you have these like this is right to travel. You have a common law right to travel. You're not engaged in business. I'm not engaged in. I got a right as a man to move up and down the road, man. Everything I'm doing is not business, and you let them know that. I got a right, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's not business. It's what it is. You got to let them know. They operate off of presumptions, assumptions, and color of law. Everything is a presumption until it's properly rebutted.
Right, exactly. So they cannot move against a man, a living, breathing, or one man in that instance. So my thing is, okay, go, you got that? Right. So another thing people were saying, like, I heard so many people trying to appoint the judge or the prosecutor, or the trustee. So
that comes out of Judge Dale's document. You can read that in Judge Dale's document. Appoint the judge as the trustee. But go ahead.
Yeah, but why couldn't you? I mean, people are missing the whole point. The most powerful person in there is the person that holds the ledger, and neither one of them holds the ledger. It's the court clerk. She holds the ledger. So therefore, why wouldn't you?
That's who you get the bonds to. I mean, right. You find all that out when you go in. You find that out when you go and read admiralty law. You read something like the clerk. I tell people to read the clerk's practice, because when you read history, you will see that they're still doing the same thing. It's just in a different form that we don't recognize it. It's not readily apparent. So in order to get a good grasp on what they're doing, it's very important to study the history. So that's why I tell people to direct people to read something like the clerk's practice. But most people are not going to read it because it requires so much looking up of words. That is a document that is a study for real. It's not like something you're just going to sit down and read. You got to, every other sentence, you got to stop and look up a word. It's one of those type of things. So unless somebody is committed and dedicated to understanding, so they can understand that they don't use the word bond, they use the word caution. That's just a small example. And you understand that a power of attorney is how they actually constituted somebody to represent you in court. So use power of attorney, to do it. You say, okay, well, this is how they used to do it. This is what the power of attorney was used for. They have somebody represent you in court in admiralty proceedings. But you try to do that today, they say you can't do it. But the history shows that this is how you did it.
Right, exactly.
Somebody says you're an attorney. In fact, I am. People give those type of responses. Go ahead.
Right. So, all right. So now, so when we're in these venues, in the venue, we're not even supposed to be in there, for one, like you said. But when we're doing the common law, so you're saying that is definitely a private matter when we're doing the common law, because it's not public, it's private.
It's private, and it's many different ways to do it. You can come in under Rule 24, which is a third-party intervener, and this is where the acceptance of honor and the stranger doctrine comes in. Right, well, you're the third party intervener because that's not you on the you on the paper in the caption of the pleading. You're not the prosecution. You're not the defendant, and you're not the judge. You're a stranger to the proceeding, and as a stranger, you're here to make sure that the debts get paid.
Right. So now, so in that case, so basically, you would be like kind of authorized representative or third party intervener or a third party interest. So now with that abatement of common law, when you come in under that, you must come in as a special appearance.
Always a special appearance. You have to be in your proper person if you're going to be in a special appearance. Yeah, because if you do it in a general appearance, the automatic presumption is that you fall within their jurisdiction.
Right. Exactly. So at any time, it doesn't matter. That's basically my understanding. That is challenging jurisdiction when we do that.
Well, if you want to challenge jurisdiction, it's not necessarily challenging jurisdiction. It's just saying that you don't really have in personam jurisdiction over me. These are in-rem proceedings, is what they really are. They're not in personam proceedings. They're in rem, which is about a thing, and that thing being the trust corpus, which is your property. And that's what they really are trying to tag. And you're being looked at as a trustee of that particular property. And the trustee has all the accountability, and that's why they put you in jail. Because you're a trustee ex officio who has some malfeasance and failure to perform some type of fiduciary act that what you were supposed to perform. And you can look at all of this when you read like a secured party creditor process. It says in the documentation, it talks about all this, that you have a duty to discharge all public charges your straw man may incur.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I'm gonna put that because I'm in there dealing with common law right now, and I'm still going. I'm still going with they're trying to get me to do the cycle valve, but that's the whole point because I invoke common law, and that's what they're trying to stop me from moving my claim because it's a notice of a claim. So you got to people want to go right in there and sue, but the claim is no more. The notice is no more than a notice to let them to put them on notice that if they keep proceeding, then the claim will follow. That's what.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm gonna tell you, brother. You may want to look at REIT creditors and their bonds because I'm telling you, it's a debt collection. All they want is that money for that debt, and they wonder why you are arguing with them about it because there is no money. There's not any money. Give them a negotiable instrument, and this is what the purpose of I do negotiable instrument class. Because you need to know how to construct a bill of exchange, a promissory note, or something like that. This is what the United Nations Conference on International Trade Law is for, and this is what Article 3 of the UCC is for. It's telling you how to make a negotiable instrument. That's what they're for. So, that would probably alleviate a lot of stuff, but right now you're in dishonor, you're arguing with them. Anytime you argue, you're in dishonor.
Right, so
argument in these courts is dangerous.
It's dangerous. Right, so in other words, so that is no one saying that. So the common law, when you're saying would be an argument, will be arguing, or just argument?
It could be construed as that. When I did the abatement in common law, I did that because I wanted people to understand that. Look, I can offer you public remedies. I done went through all this stuff. I understand procedure and all this stuff. And I got experience in going in and dealing with a lot of these matters. So I just make sure you understand the whole gamut. I prefer private remedy because I know the importance and I know how weak trying to use procedure to get out of criminal case is going to be. That's why they got like a 99% conviction rate on the state and federal levels. And you're definitely not about to find an attorney to help you. I mean, here's an example. Tonight, with this abatement of the federal indictment, it is very clear that you have a right under Rule 6B to voir dire the grand jury. And if they convene the grand jury without your knowledge, all you do is file a motion to dismiss because procedurally they're incorrect. You think they're going to do that?
Right, exactly.
People don't follow their own rules.
Right, so
I'm telling you.
So what you're saying is that, in other words, when they bring a grand jury indictment in front of us, doing without us appearing before the grand jury, correct?
You don't even, let me tell you, they're supposed to put have a stenographic record of the proceedings that went on with the grand jury all this stuff. You don't never see any of that. You don't even know if it was really a grand jury.
Exactly.
You don't even know.
Exactly.
You don't even know. I done seen indictments come through like 25 at a time. And I'm like, how you indict all these people at one time? How did grand jury go through all these cases in one day and indict 25 people?
They did.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm dealing with right now. So you're saying invest. So, all right, so how did the abatement work out for you when you went in?
It didn't work. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They don't follow their own. They don't follow. What the judge said is it was very good, but they just ignored it. The only thing that they paid attention to is when I filed a demand for speedy trial, because they had to, because I put so much pressure on them about it. I'm putting a lot of pressure on them about that demand for speedy trial. But they're supposed to. What I'm trying to show you is these are the rules. They're supposed to follow the rules. And you gotta understand too, I was in jail. I wasn't free like you. I was